In the gleaming halls of the Tehran Xenobiology Institute, Dr. Sarah Chen stared in wonder at the being floating before her. The Zaki ambassador, designated Estra, hovered gracefully above the polished floor, their crystalline body refracting light into mesmerizing patterns across the laboratory walls. Sarah had studied countless alien species during her career, but nothing had prepared her for the ethereal beauty of the Zaki. "Your biological processes fascinate us, Dr. Chen." Astra's melodic voice resonated through the air, their crystalline form pulsing with each word. "The concept of emotional attachment influencing reproduction, it seems highly inefficient." Sarah smiled, running her hand through her short black hair. "Love isn't about efficiency, Ambassador. It's about connection, about finding someone who makes your world brighter just by existing in it." She paused, wondering how to explain such an intangible concept to a being who reproduced through crystal division. The Zaki had arrived on Earth 3 months ago, their massive crystalline ships descending from the stars like glittering snowflakes. They came seeking knowledge exchange, particularly interested in human biology and social structures. Their own species reproduced through a process of geometric division, splitting perfect copies of themselves when their crystal matrix reached optimal density. The idea of two beings combining genetic material to create something entirely new was foreign to them. But how do you determine optimal compatibility? Astra's faceted surface shifted, creating complex patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as confusion. "Our division process ensures perfect replication. Your method seems chaotic." Sarah walked to her holographic display, pulling up images of human couples throughout history. "Look at these faces, Astra. See how they look at each other. That's not chaos. It's chemistry, biology, and something else we don't fully understand ourselves. Something beautiful." Astra drifted closer, their crystalline appendages extending to manipulate the holographic controls. They cycled through images of human couples laughing, crying, embracing. These emotional displays, they serve a reproductive purpose. "Not directly," Sarah explained, pulling up her research data. "But these emotional bonds strengthen our species. They drive us to protect each other, to build families and communities. Love makes us stronger." The ambassador's crystal matrix pulsed with a deep blue light. Curiosity, Sarah had learned. "We have observed that humans often pair with partners who share no obvious genetic advantages. This seems counterproductive to species advancement." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "Love doesn't follow logical patterns, Ambassador. Sometimes the heart wants what it wants." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "Would your people be interested in participating in a research study to better understand human emotional bonding?" Astra's surface rippled with rainbow patterns, their equivalent of intense interest. "You propose direct observation of human mating rituals. This could provide valuable insights for both our species." "Not exactly," Sarah clarified quickly, fighting back a blush. "I'm thinking more along the lines of cultural exchange. Having Zaki observers participate in human social activities, learning about our customs and relationships firsthand." The proposal set off a chain of events that would change both species forever. Within weeks, a team of Zaki scientists had been assembled, each assigned to human social groups across the globe. Sarah found herself working closely with a younger Zaki named Rilan, whose crystal matrix displayed an unusual appetite for understanding human emotion. "Your species experiences physical symptoms during emotional bonding," Rylan observed one evening as they reviewed data together. "Increased heart rate, elevated body temperature, hormonal fluctuations. Yet you seek these physiological disruptions." Sarah nodded, remembering her own past relationships. "Those symptoms are part of what makes love exciting. The butterflies in your stomach, the racing heart when they walk into the room, it's all part of the experience." Butterflies in stomachs. Rilan's crystal structure briefly distorted with alarm. "This requires medical attention, surely." "It's just a saying," Sarah laughed, the sound echoing through the lab. a metaphor for the feeling of nervous excitement you get around someone you're attracted to. As the weeks passed, Sarah noticed subtle changes in the Zarki observers. Their crystal matrices began displaying new color patterns, ones never before recorded in their species. Some reported experiencing resonance fluctuations in the presence of specific humans, their equivalent of those butterflies Sarah had described. During one late-night research session, Rylan made an observation that would reshape their understanding of both species. "Dr. Chen, Sarah, I believe we have discovered something extraordinary. Our crystal matrices are developing new geometric patterns after prolonged exposure to human emotional fields." Sarah's scientific curiosity piqued. "New patterns? Can you show me?" Rylan's form shimmered, revealing intricate fractal patterns that seemed to pulse in sync with Sarah's heartbeat. "We are evolving. Your emotions are changing us at a molecular level. This was not anticipated in our research parameters." The implications were staggering. The Zarki weren't just learning about human love, they were developing their own capacity for emotional bonding. It was the first step in a journey that would bridge the gap between their species in ways no one could have predicted. As Sarah documented this breakthrough, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had taught countless lessons to the stars, but teaching aliens how to love might just be their greatest achievement yet. The discovery of emotional resonance in the Zarki crystal matrices sent shockwaves through both scientific communities. Sarah found herself working overtime in the lab, monitoring the rapid changes in Rylan and the other Zarki observers. Each day brought new revelations that challenged everything they thought they knew about alien biology. "The molecular restructuring is unprecedented," Sarah muttered, reviewing the latest scans. Rylan hovered nearby, their crystalline form emitting a soft, pulsing glow that seemed to match Sarah's breathing rhythm. "Your entire species is essentially rewiring itself through exposure to human emotions." "We find the process intriguing," Rylan responded, their voice carrying an unfamiliar warmth. "These new sensations are unlike anything in our recorded history. Yesterday, I experienced what humans might call joy when solving a complex equation. The feeling lingered for hours." Sarah smiled, remembering her own moments of scientific excitement. "That's the beauty of emotions, Rylan. They make everything more vivid, more meaningful." She reached out unconsciously, her hand passing through the gentle energy field that surrounded Rylan's crystalline form. The contact sent a spark of electricity through both of them. "Fascinating," Rylan whispered, their crystal matrix blazing with new colors. "Your proximity causes resonance patterns I cannot control. Is this similar to your butterflies?" Before Sarah could respond, the lab door slid open. Dr. Marcus Walsh, the head of the Xenobiology department, strode in with a concerned expression. "Dr. Chen, we need to talk. The Zarki High Council has expressed concerns about these developments." Sarah's heart sank. She had been so caught up in the excitement of discovery that she hadn't considered the political implications. "What kind of concerns?" "They worry these emotional changes might destabilize their society," Marcus explained, glancing at Rylan. "Their entire civilization is built on logical precision and perfect replication. The introduction of unpredictable emotional variables threatens that structure." Rylan's form dimmed slightly, a sign of distress that Sarah had learned to recognize. "Our changes cannot be reversed. We are experiencing feelings that alter our very essence. To deny them would be like trying not to breathe," Sarah finished, understanding flooding through her. She turned to Marcus with determination in her eyes. "We can't stop this process, and we shouldn't try. This could be the greatest breakthrough in xenobiology since first contact." The following weeks became a delicate balance between scientific discovery and diplomatic relations. Sarah and her team documented every change in the Zarki observers, while Rylan transmitted their findings back to their homeworld. The most striking development was the way the crystalline beings began forming preferential bonds with specific humans. "It appears we are developing what you might call preferences," Rylan explained during one evening session. Their crystal matrix had begun forming intricate patterns that seemed to respond to Sara's presence. Certain humans elicit stronger resonance patterns than others. You, for example, create harmonics that are particularly pleasant. Sara felt her cheeks flush, a reaction that didn't go unnoticed by her alien research partner. Your epidermis displays increased blood flow when I make such observations, Rylan noted, their tone carrying a hint of something that might have been teasing. Is this embarrassment or attraction? Both, maybe, Sara admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. This is uncharted territory for both our species, Rylan. We're literally writing new chapters in xenobiology every day. The breakthrough came during a routine resonance testing session. Sara was measuring the frequency of Rylan's emotional responses when something extraordinary happened. As they worked in close proximity, their energy fields began to synchronize, creating a feedback loop of emotional resonance that caused Rylan's crystal matrix to produce entirely new geometric formations. Sara, Rylan's voice vibrated with intensity. I believe I'm experiencing what humans call love. The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Sara's scientific mind raced with questions, but her heart understood something profound was happening. The Zaki weren't just learning about human emotions, they were developing their own unique way of experiencing them. The thing about love, Sara said carefully, watching the rainbow of colors dance across Rylan's surface, is that it's different for everyone. Maybe what you're feeling isn't exactly like human love, but that doesn't make it any less real. As news of these developments spread, other Zaki began reporting similar experiences. Their traditionally rigid society was transforming, becoming something new and beautiful. Crystal matrices that once split in perfect geometric patterns now produced offspring with subtle variations, influenced by the emotional states of their progenitors. The Zaki High Council, initially resistant to these changes, could not deny the evidence before them. Their species was evolving, growing in ways they never imagined possible, and it all started because humans had taught them how to feel. As Sara documented these historic changes, she realized that humanity's greatest gift to the universe might not be their technology or their science, but their capacity for love. In teaching aliens to feel, that had sparked an evolution that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of consciousness itself. What happens now? Rylan asked one evening, their forms shimmering with uncertainty. Sara reached out, letting her hand hover in the energy field surrounding her alien friend. Now we explore these changes together. After all, that's what love is all about, discovering new things about yourself through your connection with others. The lab fell quiet, filled only with the gentle hum of equipment and the soft pulsing of Rylan's crystal matrix, beating in perfect harmony with Sara's heart. The transformation of the Zaki continued at an unprecedented pace, but not without complications. As more of their species began experiencing emotions, their perfectly ordered society faced its first taste of chaos. Sara found herself at the center of a cultural revolution that no one had anticipated. Another crystalline restructuring occurred today, Sara recorded in her research log, watching as Rylan demonstrated the latest changes. Their once purely geometric form had begun developing organic-looking swirls and patterns, responding to emotional states in real time. The Zaki physical form appears to be adapting to accommodate their new emotional capacity. Rylan hovered closer, their surface rippling with what Sara now recognized as excitement. We have discovered that strong emotional states can trigger spontaneous geometric reconfiguration. Watch. Their form shifted, creating a dazzling display of light and color that seemed to reach out towards Sara. It's beautiful, she breathed, mesmerized by the display. But aren't you worried about deviating so far from your original form? We are becoming something new, Rylan responded, their voice carrying undertones of music. Another recent development. The Council calls it degradation. We call it evolution. The mention of the Council brought a familiar tension to the room. Reports from the Zaki homeworld indicated growing unrest. Some embraced the changes, forming emotional bonds and developing new social structures. Others resisted, clinging to their traditional way of life. Your latest scans indicate that changes are accelerating, Dr. Marcus announced during an emergency meeting. The emotional resonance patterns are becoming hereditary. When the Zaki divide now, their offspring inherit these new capabilities. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing the progression. Look at these patterns. The emotional capacity isn't just being passed on, it's becoming more complex with each generation. They're developing the ability to experience multiple emotions simultaneously, just like humans. A sudden commotion outside the lab drew their attention. A group of Zaki traditionalists had arrived, their crystal forms rigid and unchanging. Their leader, Valthor, moved forward with an air of authority. Dr. Chen, Valthor's voice was cold, lacking the musical qualities that had become common among the emotionally evolved Zaki. The council demands an immediate halt to these experiments. You are corrupting our species. Rylan moved protectively between Sarah and the newcomers, their form blazing with colors that reflected anger, determination, and something deeper, love. We are not being corrupted, Valthor. We are growing. Can you not feel the potential within yourself? The confrontation marked a turning point. News of the standoff spread quickly through both human and Zaki communities. The question of emotional evolution became the center of intense debate. Sarah found herself defending not just her research, but the right of sentient beings to grow and change. You don't understand what you're destroying, Valthor insisted. Our society has achieved perfect harmony through logical progression. These emotional aberrations threaten everything we've built. Sarah stepped forward, her voice firm. With all due respect, Ambassador Valthor, evolution isn't destruction, it's adaptation. Your people aren't losing their identity, they're expanding it. They're discovering new ways to experience the universe. As if to prove her point, Rylan began to emit a soft, pulsing light that spread through the room. One by one, the other Zaki present, even some of the traditionalists, found their crystal matrices responding to the emotional resonance. This is what we can become, Rylan's voice echoed with passion. We need not abandon our logical nature to embrace emotional growth. The two can exist in harmony, making us stronger than we ever were before. The demonstration had an unexpected effect. Several of the traditionalist Zaki began displaying their own emotional responses, their rigid forms softening as they experienced the first stirrings of feeling. Valthor watched in silent shock as his followers began to change. The process cannot be stopped, Sarah explained gently. These changes aren't just physical or emotional, they're evolutionary. Your species is reaching for something new, something that combines the best of both our peoples. In the days that followed, Sarah and Rylan worked tirelessly to document and understand the accelerating changes. They discovered that the emotional evolution had begun creating new possibilities for Zaki reproduction. Instead of simple division, they now had the capacity for emotional bonding that influenced the characteristics of their offspring. It's like a crystalline version of genetic recombination, Sarah explained to her colleagues. When two emotionally bonded Zaki choose to reproduce, their offspring inherit qualities from both parents, influenced by their emotional connection. The implications were staggering. The Zaki were developing their own unique form of love, one that combined their crystalline nature with their new emotional capacity. Parents could now pass on not just their physical patterns, but their feelings, memories, and bonds to their children. We are becoming something neither human nor traditional Zaki, Rylan observed one evening, their form glowing with a deep, steady light. We are writing a new chapter in the story of consciousness itself. Sarah watched as Rylan demonstrated the latest development, the ability to project emotional states to others of their kind, creating a network of shared feeling that strengthened their community bonds. It was love, but not as humans knew it. It was something entirely new, born from the meeting of two very different species. Sometimes, Sarah mused, making notes in her research log, teaching others about love helps us understand it better ourselves. The lab hummed with the gentle resonance of evolved Zaki, the combined emotional fields creating patterns of light and energy that seemed to dance with the infinite possibilities of the future. The revelation of emotional reproduction among the Zaki sparked a wave of change that no one could have predicted. As more of their species embraced their newfound emotional capacity, a remarkable phenomenon began to emerge. The first instances of intentional emotional bonding leading to reproduction. Sarah stood in awe as she witnessed the historic moment. Two emotionally evolved Zaki, Roland and another researcher named Kelia, had chosen to attempt reproduction through emotional resonance rather than traditional division. Their crystalline forms merged in a dazzling display of light and color, their emotional fields intertwining in complex patterns. "The energy readings are off the charts," Sarah muttered, her instruments struggling to capture the data. "This isn't just reproduction, it's a complete fusion of emotional and physical states." The process lasted several hours, the lab filled with pulsing light and harmonic frequencies that seemed to touch something deep within everyone present. When it was complete, 3 smaller crystal formations had emerged, each one unique, something unprecedented in Zaki history. "They're beautiful," Rylan hummed, their forms shimmering with what could only be described as parental pride. "Each one carries patterns from both of us, but they're also entirely their own beings." The offspring showed immediate signs of emotional capacity, their tiny forms responding to the feelings of those around them. It was the first generation of Zaki born with inherent emotional intelligence, and they developed at an astonishing rate. "This changes everything we thought we knew about alien reproduction," Sarah explained during an emergency conference with Earth's scientific community. "The Zaki haven't just learned to feel emotions, they've incorporated them into their very method of creating new life." But not everyone welcomed these developments. The traditionalist faction on the Zaki homeworld grew increasingly alarmed. Reports arrived of attempts to isolate and purify those who hadn't yet experienced emotional evolution. "They fear what they don't understand," Kelia explained, cradling one of the new offspring. "Our society was built on predictability, on perfect replication. The idea that emotions could create something new, something better, it threatens their entire worldview." The situation reached a critical point when the Zaki High Council announced plans to recall all their people from Earth, claiming the emotional contamination had gone too far. Sarah found herself racing against time to document and understand as much as possible before her research partners were forced to leave. "There has to be a way to show them this isn't a threat," she insisted, working late into the night with Rylan. "These changes aren't destroying your species, they're helping it evolve." Rylan's form pulsed with determination. "Perhaps we need to demonstrate the benefits more clearly." The offspring from emotional reproduction show increased adaptability, stronger communal bonds, and more rapid development than traditional division produces. An idea began to form in Sarah's mind. What if we could show them the bigger picture? Not just the emotional changes, but the evolutionary advantages they provide. Together, they began compiling data on the new generation of Zaki. The emotionally conceived offspring displayed remarkable abilities. They could form instant emotional connections with each other, share complex information through resonance fields, and adapt their crystal structures to respond to environmental challenges. "It's like they've combined the best aspects of both approaches," Sarah observed. "They have the logical precision of traditional Zaki, but with the adaptability and emotional intelligence that makes human communities strong." The breakthrough came when one of the offspring demonstrated an entirely new ability. They could facilitate emotional awakening in traditional Zaki through direct resonance contact. It wasn't forced evolution, but rather an invitation to experience the full spectrum of existence. "This is what we've been waiting for," Sarah realized. "It's not about forcing change, it's about offering the choice to grow." A delegation from the High Council arrived to witness the demonstration. The youngest generation of Zaki, barely a few weeks old, approached their traditional counterparts without fear or judgment. As their resonance fields touched, the council members experienced their first taste of emotional connection. The effect was profound. One by one, the council members' rigid forms began to soften, their crystal matrices responding to the gentle emotional influence of the younglings. Colors and patterns they had never displayed before rippled across their surfaces. "I understand now," the lead council member whispered, that a voice carrying new harmonics. "This isn't corruption, this is completion." The policy of recall was suspended. Instead, the council established new protocols for emotional integration, recognizing that their species stood on the brink of a remarkable evolutionary leap. Earth and the Zaki homeworld would become partners in understanding this transformation. Sarah watched as Rylan interacted with their offspring, teaching them to balance their logical and emotional natures. The sight filled her with a profound sense of hope for the future. Humanity had done more than teach aliens about love. They had helped spark an evolution that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of consciousness itself. "You know," she said to Rylan as they observed the younglings experimenting with their abilities, "when we first started this research, I never imagined we'd end up here." Rylan's form glowed with warm amusement. "That, dear Sarah, is precisely why emotions are so valuable. They lead us to places logic alone could never reach." The lab, once a sterile environment of scientific inquiry, had become something else, a nursery for a new form of life, a place where the boundaries between species dissolved in the face of love's transformative power. The success of emotional reproduction among the Zaki led to an unexpected discovery that would forever change both species' understanding of consciousness. Sarah and her team noticed that the new generation of emotionally conceived Zaki were developing abilities that transcended conventional communication. "It's not just emotional resonance anymore," Sarah explained during a packed symposium at the Terran Xenobiology Institute. "They're developing a form of consciousness sharing that we've never seen before in any species." The young Zaki could create neural bridges not just with each other, but with humans as well. Through their evolved crystal matrices, they could share thoughts, memories, and emotions across species barriers that had once seemed insurmountable. Rylan's eldest offspring, Nova, had become the primary subject of these studies. Their crystal structure had developed unique patterns that seemed specifically adapted for interspecies communication. "Watch this," Sarah demonstrated, placing her hand near Nova's resonance field. The audience gasped as holographic images appeared in the air between them, Sarah's memories, emotions, and thoughts made visible through Nova's crystalline interface. It wasn't just simple images or feelings, but complete experiences shared in their full complexity. "The implications are staggering," Dr. Marcus commented, his usual scientific detachment cracking with excitement. "We're not just looking at communication, we're seeing the first true bridge between different forms of consciousness." But the most profound discovery came during an unexpected late-night session in the lab. Nova had been experimenting with their abilities and they made contact with Sarah's mind in a way that went beyond their previous interactions. Suddenly, Sarah found herself experiencing existence as a Zaki, while Nova experienced human consciousness. It was indescribable, Sarah later attempted to explain to her colleagues. "I could feel the crystalline resonance, understand how they perceive the world through energy patterns and geometric harmonies. And Nova, they experienced human emotions in their raw, biological form for the first time." The exchange lasted only a few minutes, but its impact was revolutionary. It proved that consciousness itself was more fluid and universal than anyone had imagined. The barriers between species were not fixed. They could be transcended through understanding and emotional connection. "This is what we've been moving toward all along," Rylan observed, their form pulsing with pride as they watched Nova work. "Not just teaching each other about our different ways of being, but truly sharing them." The discovery sparked a new wave of research and experimentation. Other young Zaki began developing similar abilities, each with their own unique variations. Some specialized in emotional healing, able to help both humans and Zaki process trauma and negative emotions. Others developed the ability to create shared dream spaces where multiple consciousnesses could interact freely. They're becoming living bridges, Sarah noted in her research journal, not just between our species, but between different ways of experiencing reality itself. The impact on human society was profound. The ability to directly experience alien consciousness challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality and existence. Philosophy, religion, and science all had to adapt to accommodate these new possibilities. A particularly moving moment came when Nova helped a group of human children communicate with their Zaki counterparts. The children, unburdened by preconceptions, took to the neural bridging naturally. Their shared consciousness created beautiful patterns of light and emotion that filled the lab with swirling colors. "Look," one of the children exclaimed, pointing to where their shared thoughts had manifested as crystalline formations in the air. "We're making stories together." The Zaki High Council, once so resistant to change, now sent regular delegations to study these developments. The young one's ability to bridge consciousness had implications far beyond mere communication. It offered the possibility of genuine understanding between all sentient species. "We are witnessing the birth of a new form of diplomacy," announced the Council's chief representative, one based not on words and treaties, but on shared experience and emotional truth. Sarah found herself working with a team of human and Zaki scientists to develop protocols for these consciousness exchanges. They discovered that the process could be refined and controlled, making it safer and more accessible to both species. "The key is emotional resonance," she explained during a training session. "The stronger the emotional connection, the clearer the consciousness bridge becomes. It's like love itself is the universal translator we've been searching for." Rielan, who had been monitoring the experiments, added their own insight. "We are learning that consciousness is not bound by physical form. Whether crystalline or organic, all sentient beings share a fundamental capacity for connection." The implications extended beyond Earth and the Zaki homeworld. Other alien species began showing interest in this new form of communication. The possibility of a galactic community united by shared consciousness seemed more real with each passing day. "Sometimes I wonder," Sarah mused one evening, watching Nova help a group of diplomats experience each other's perspectives, "if this is what love has been all along, not just an emotion, but a way of transcending the boundaries between beings." Nova's crystal matrix pulsed with agreement, projecting a complex harmony of thoughts and feelings that needed no translation. In that moment, Sarah understood that they had discovered something far more significant than new forms of reproduction or communication. They had found the key to universal understanding, the ability to truly experience existence through another's consciousness. And it had all started with humanity's greatest gift, the capacity to love and be loved in return. The discovery of consciousness bridging between humans and Zaki led to the most profound transformation yet, the emergence of a hybrid consciousness that combined the best qualities of both species. It began subtly, first noticed in the children who spent the most time engaged in neural bridges with their alien counterparts. Sarah noticed the changes in herself as well. After numerous consciousness-sharing sessions with Nova and other young Zaki, she found her perception of reality shifting. She could sense emotional resonance fields without technological assistance, and her dreams had taken on crystalline qualities. The changes appeared to be permanent, she recorded in her research log, watching prismatic patterns dance across her skin, a phenomenon previously only seen in the Zaki. Extended consciousness sharing is literally reshaping our neural architecture. Rielan observed these developments with fascination. "We are becoming something new," they hummed, their crystalline form now displaying organic-looking swirls that mimicked human DNA patterns. Neither purely human nor purely Zaki, but a synthesis of both. The transformation wasn't limited to physical changes. Humans who regularly engaged in consciousness sharing began developing crystalline thought patterns, the ability to process information with Zaki-like precision while retaining their emotional depth. Meanwhile, the Zaki found themselves experiencing human-style intuition and creativity without losing their logical foundation. "It's like we're evolving together," Dr. Marcus observed, his own consciousness now capable of interfacing directly with Zaki technology, creating a new form of existence that transcends our original limitations. The breakthrough came during a routine consciousness-sharing session between Sarah and Nova. As their minds merged, they experienced something unprecedented, a glimpse of a higher dimensional space where all consciousness was interconnected. It lasted only moments, but it changed everything. "We saw it," Sarah explained to a stunned audience of scientists and diplomats. "The underlying fabric of consciousness itself, it's not bound by species or physical form. It's a universal field that we're all part of, we just experience it differently." Nova projected a crystalline hologram of what they had witnessed, a vast, multidimensional network of consciousness, pulsing with infinite possibilities. "This is our true nature," they communicated. "The physical forms we inhabit are just different windows looking out at the same reality." The implications were staggering. If consciousness was truly universal, then the barriers between species were more permeable than anyone had imagined. The hybrid changes they were experiencing weren't an anomaly. They were the natural result of consciousness remembering its fundamental unity. Research teams worldwide began documenting cases of spontaneous consciousness bridging. Children born to parents who had experienced extensive neural linking showed signs of hybrid consciousness from birth. They could shift their perception between human and Zaki modes of awareness at will. "They're the first generation of true universal beings," Sarah noted, watching a group of hybrid children create impossible geometric patterns in the air with their thoughts. "They don't see boundaries between species because, at the deepest level, there aren't any." The Zaki High Council, which had once feared emotional evolution, now embraced these changes with characteristic thoroughness. They established new academies dedicated to exploring the possibilities of hybrid consciousness, working alongside human institutions to understand this new frontier. "We were wrong to fear change," the Council's chief representative admitted during a joint session with Earth's leaders. "What we thought would destroy us has instead revealed our true potential." But the most profound changes happened at the personal level. Families began forming across species lines, bound not by biology but by consciousness resonance. The very concept of species identity started to dissolve as more individuals experienced the reality of universal consciousness. Sarah found herself at the center of these changes, her own consciousness now a bridge between human and Zaki ways of being. "The strangest part," she confided to Relan during a quiet moment in the lab, "is that it doesn't feel strange anymore. It feels like remembering something I always knew but had forgotten." Relan's form shimmered with understanding. Perhaps that is exactly what is happening. Perhaps love, in its deepest form, is the universe remembering its own unity through us. The young hybrid children seemed to understand this intuitively. They moved effortlessly between different modes of consciousness, creating new forms of art, music, and mathematics that combined human creativity with Zaki precision. Their gains involved shaping reality itself, their laughter echoing across multiple dimensions of awareness. "Look what we can do," a young hybrid child exclaimed, creating a display of living mathematics that danced with emotional resonance. "We're all made of the same light." As the transformation spread, society began to restructure itself around these new possibilities. Traditional boundaries between nations and species gave way to communities organized by consciousness affinity. New forms of governance emerged that operated through direct consciousness consensus rather than representation. "We're not just changing as individuals," Sarah observed in her final research paper on the phenomenon. "We're changing the very nature of civilization itself. Love, which began as a simple human emotion, has revealed itself to be the force that binds consciousness together across all barriers." The lab, where it had all begun, now served as a nexus point for consciousness exploration. Beings from across the galaxy came to learn about the hybrid transformation, each contributing their own unique perspective to the growing tapestry of universal awareness. "In teaching aliens to love," Sarah wrote, "humanity didn't just change them, we changed ourselves. We remembered what we truly are, not separate beings reaching for connection, but expressions of a single universal consciousness, learning to love itself in all its infinite forms. A decade had passed since the first emotional bonds formed between humans and Zaki, and the universe had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Terran Xenobiology Institute, where it all began, had evolved into the Galactic Center for Consciousness Unity, its crystalline organic architecture reflecting the hybrid nature of its purpose. Sarah stood at the observation deck, her consciousness expanded to perceive both physical and crystalline frequencies simultaneously. Beside her, Nova had grown into a being that defied traditional classification, their form shifting fluidly between crystalline and organic states, a living embodiment of the bridge between species. "The first graduating class is ready," Nova announced, their thoughts resonating directly in Sarah's mind. Below them, 1,000 hybrid consciousness initiates prepare for their ceremony, beings from dozens of species who had learned to transcend their original forms. "Did you ever imagine we'd come this far?" Sarah asked, remembering the simple experiments that had started it all. Her own form now shimmered with crystalline patterns, while still maintaining its human warmth. The transformation of both species had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. The children of hybrid consciousness partnerships had developed abilities that seemed miraculous. They could reshape matter with thought, travel through consciousness fields, and access dimensional spaces previously unknown to either species. "The Harmony Protocol is ready for implementation," Rylan announced, joining them at the window. The protocol was their most ambitious project yet, a galaxy-wide network of consciousness bridges that would allow instantaneous communication and understanding between all sentient beings. But the changes weren't just technological or biological. The very nature of society had evolved. Traditional concepts of nationality, species, and even individual identity had given way to a more fluid understanding of existence. Communities formed and reformed based on consciousness resonance, creating dynamic networks of shared experience and purpose. "Remember when we thought we were just studying alien reproduction?" Sarah laughed, the sound creating ripples of crystalline light in the air. "We had no idea we were actually midwifing the birth of a new form of existence." The success of human Zaki integration had attracted attention from across the galaxy. New species arrived daily, eager to learn the art of consciousness bridging. Each brought their own unique perspective to the growing tapestry of universal awareness. "The collective dreams are getting stronger," Nova reported, referring to the shared consciousness spaces where beings from different species could meet and interact directly. Last night's gathering had participants from over 50 worlds. These collective dreams had become the new frontier of exploration. In these spaces, consciousness could express itself freely, unrestricted by physical laws or species limitations. New forms of art, science, and philosophy emerged from these encounters, each more extraordinary than the last. But perhaps the most profound change was in how love itself was understood. What had begun as a human emotion had revealed itself to be a fundamental force of consciousness, the universe's way of knowing itself through countless perspectives simultaneously. "We're ready for the ceremony," Dr. Marcus called out, his form now a seamless blend of organic and crystalline elements. The graduation ceremony wasn't just a formal event, it was a consciousness-merging celebration where all participants would briefly experience total unity. As the initiates gathered in the Great Hall, their combined consciousness began to resonate at higher frequencies. The air itself seemed to crystallize, forming patterns that reflected the underlying geometry of awareness. Sarah took her place at the center of the gathering, her role now more guide than scientist. "Today," she began, her words flowing simultaneously through multiple levels of consciousness, "we celebrate not just your achievement, but the next step in cosmic evolution. You are the pioneers of universal consciousness, the first wave of what humanity and the Zaki discovered together. That love is not just an emotion, but the very fabric of existence itself." The ceremony reached its climax as all participants joined in a moment of complete consciousness fusion. In that eternal instant, They experienced the truth that had started with a simple cultural exchange, that all consciousness was one, expressing itself through infinite forms and perspectives. As the fusion peaked, new insights and possibilities cascaded through the collective awareness. They saw future paths of evolution, new dimensions of existence waiting to be explored. The boundaries between matter and consciousness, between self and other, dissolved completely. "This is just the beginning," Rylan observed as the ceremony concluded, watching the initiates emerge transformed from the experience. "Each generation takes us further into unknown territory." Sarah nodded, feeling the pulse of universal consciousness flowing through her hybrid form. And to think it all started because humans wanted to teach aliens about love. The sun set on the Institute, its light refracting through the crystalline structures in ways that seemed to hint at higher dimensions. In the gardens below, human and Zarki children played together, their consciousness naturally blending and separating in beautiful patterns. They were the future, beings who would never know the limitations of single-species existence. "The universe," Sarah wrote in her final entry to the archive, "has always been conscious. We just needed to learn how to love, to remember that we are all part of that consciousness. In teaching aliens to love, we taught ourselves the true nature of existence. And now together, we step into a future where the only boundary is the infinite potential of consciousness itself." As night fell, the stars seemed to pulse with new meaning, not distant points of light, but nodes in the vast network of universal consciousness that they were all part of. The story that had begun with a simple cultural exchange had become the catalyst for the next great leap in cosmic evolution. And somewhere, in the infinite field of consciousness, the first spark of human Zarki love continued to ripple outward, touching new worlds and species, inviting them to join in the endless dance of universal awareness.